Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, I am so happy to be back. It's been 2 weeks since a new episode. It's episode 86, TIFF50 Ranked. I'm very excited to talk about these movies, guys. Obviously, some of them are not the biggest titles. Like, I did miss a few major titles like Frankenstein or The Smashing Machine or other various huge ones like No Other Choice, but there are some big ones in here that I was very excited to see. I'm excited to talk about them today. But before we get started, I hope you are all doing well. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks without an episode. I was honestly going to do one last week, but I was working on set on my first job for a commercial, so it was just kind of crazy doing these like 12 to 14 hour days with my commute, and I was just exhausted by the time I got home. So I'm still going to talk about Sorry Baby, but that'll be later in the What Else I Watched segment. Other than that, I hope you're all doing well. It has been a great couple weeks. I had a fantastic vacation. We're moved into my apartment, even though we don't really have, furniture, but we still have lots of good stuff going on, and I've been so pumped to record this episode for you guys. It's been a while. So a couple of housekeeping things before we get into the episode. Of course, there's going to be a YouTube video at the end of the month. I believe I'm going to do a physical media walkthrough. I'm literally going to show you guys every movie I have or every TV show I have on physical media. It's going to be a fun, just chill, laid back episode, or a YouTube video rather, for you guys, but I'm very excited for that. As well as today, my plan is for the episode, we're still going to do the news segment, of course, but when I'm doing my TIFF50 Ranked, I'm not going to put timestamps for each individual movie. Rather, I'm just going to do TIFF50 Ranked. It's my top 10 of the 10 movies that I saw, and it's going to be non-spoilers because I don't want to give anything away. I don't really want to go too into detail on these movies because they're not out yet. A lot of these are not going to release for a couple of months. Some of them don't even have distributors yet, so who knows when they're actually going to come out. So what do you say? Should we get into it? Let's jump into the news. All right, well, since we last spoke, Superman's sequel, Man of Tomorrow, has been set for July 2027. It's been 2 weeks since I last recorded an episode, so I've been pumped to talk about this. I did a little social media video about it, but I was pumped to talk about it on the podcast last week, so let's talk about it. Man of Tomorrow, I think that is a great title, and already there's all of these rumors about who's going to be in it, like Isabelle Marced, Aaron Pierre. Is Batman going to show up? It's interesting as well that it's going to be allegedly Superman and Lex Luthor focused, where they're going to be doing a team up, and I think that is a really cool idea. Maybe it's that he breaks him out of prison or whatever, and Brainiac is taking over the city. We might get the Bottled City Candor. There's a million things that could possibly be going on with Man of Tomorrow. It's a little confusing that James Gunn's like, oh, it's not a straight Superman sequel, but I would argue yeah, man, it is. It's Superman 2. It's called Man of Tomorrow. That is Superman. So here's my theory of the lineup of characters. It's obviously going to be Superman, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, I think Jimmy Olsen and the Daily Planet team. Then I think it's going to be Hawkgirl. I think it will be a Green Lantern, whether that's Aaron Pierre or it is Guy Gardner. I don't know. Nathan Fillion might come back. That'd be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be Peacemaker. I think it's going to be Lobo and Supergirl. I think it's going to be a really star-studded cast. I'm really looking forward to that. It's kind of a crazy turnaround. 2 years already for the next film. I mean, the Batman took how many years? And that's just way different. But interestingly, speaking of the Batman, it is filming at the exact same time. The Batman Part 2 and Man of Tomorrow are filming both in spring of 2026 and coming out in 2027. So, of course, there's all these people that are theorizing, oh, they're filming at the same time because they're going to be post-credit scenes and they're going to move over with each other. Anyways, I would love Pattinson to be the DCU Batman, but at this point, I think it's a little bit dead in the water. It's not going to happen, and we need to face that reality, as depressing as it is, really. But I mean, DC as a whole right now is doing very well. Peacemaker Season 2 is extremely popular. It's getting good viewership numbers. It is positively rated, and I'm enjoying it a lot. We'll talk about it today. The Batman, people are very excited for it. Matt Reeves was talking about it at the Emmys this weekend, talking about going into pre-production and that, Robert Pattinson's excited about the script. So there's tons of good stuff happening. At DC Studios, Supergirl next year is getting a lot of positive coverage that, oh yeah, that's going to be possibly even better than Superman. And I think Superman 2 is a really great opportunity to grow on what worked in Superman 1 and get rid of what people weren't fond of. So maybe a little bit more Clark Kent. You can keep him, a nice, lovely guy. We don't need to see evil Superman. We've seen it 100 times, and it's just a very tiring fad, or whatever you want to call it. It's been done. I think we're done with that chapter of superhero movies of, oh, but what if they were evil? It's like, no, let's just make him a good guy. I think that would be a lot more fun, but I'm really excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. And speaking of DC Studios, there was a huge piece of drama last week when a bat symbol was spotted on the filming location, or the set for Clayface, the other day, and it was the Matt Reeves Batman logo. It was stuck on a dumpster that said waste disposal, keep the city streets clean. And all the Clayface stuff that I've been seeing behind the scenes, like all the set photos, look really cool. I like that they're using, is it Glasgow or Liverpool? But they're using a lot of the same locations that the Batman used, interestingly, which is fine. Doesn't mean it's in the same universe. You never know. And the fact that the logo was on set, I mean, Twitter and the internet just, of course, ran away with it for the day. I was one of the people that was like, wait, what? Like, no way that could have happened. And I immediately was like, I guarantee you this is not real. Someone probably stuck it there. And James Gunn already shut it down on Threads, like later in the day, saying, I can guarantee you, I know that the dumpster is real, but as far as I know, no one has approved of any Batman logos or any Batman stickers being used. So pretty sure it was just someone on the crew or a fan walking nearby that had access and threw it on there. C'est la vie, but it was fun to dream for a few hours. And, it's probably not going to happen, the DCU merger, but every day it almost feels like it's just an easy solution of, let's just get Robert Pattinson and stick him in the DC universe. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, who cares? People already like him as Batman. They think maybe he could play both. Why not just make him a fantastical, little more comic book universe-y? And speaking of Robert Pattinson, a very fun project that Skylar Gisondo has joined him on, which is Prime Time. It is an A24 crime drama following a journalist who takes on the underbelly of crime in a unique way and changes TV forever. It's reportedly inspired by To Catch a Predator, which I've talked about this project before, and like when I was a kid, I was a huge To Catch a Predator fan. I don't know why. It was just like a reality show that anytime it came on my YouTube recommended, or it was on cable or satellite or whatever, had to watch the full episode because it's just so, it's such gross TV, but it's so entertaining. Chris Hansen, just shitting on these dudes and catching them in the act is great, and it's a little bit of justice. But I'm excited by this project, to be honest. I mean, Robert Pattinson starring in it. I didn't know he was going to star in it. I thought it was just he was producing it, but Skylar Gisondo working with him is really fun. I wonder what his role is. Is he one of the pedophiles that he's catching, or is he a guy that he works with at like the network? Either way, it sounds like a really fun project. I'm looking forward to it. Robert Pattinson has a lot of really interesting projects coming up, and so does Skylar Gisondo. Actually, he's in like the next Meet the Fockers film, or Meet the Parents film, I guess, the fourth one it would be, and he's playing Ariana Grande's fiance, and she's playing the daughter of Ben Stiller, so that sounds like fun as well. I don't know, there's a lot of really good projects lining up for next year. I think 2026 in general is going to be a really good year for film. I know Jordan Peele's film, I was going to talk about it last week, but Jordan Peele's film was taken off of the official like Universal website, that the date is gone, and now it's very secretive, so it might not be coming out next year. But I know Steven Spielberg has a film coming out next year, so that's going to be fantastic. I think 2026 has a lot of really good filmmakers that are going to be making stuff, and there's still tons of good stuff coming out in the rest of 2025, so I'm not that worried, as much as this year has been a little bit of a letdown film-wise for me. But we'll talk about something today that got me excited and made me have hope in this year. But the second last story I want to talk about, according to Variety, a top talent agent said that a client joining the MCU is, quote, still a crazy life-changing opportunity, but I don't have as many clients asking to do one as they were 5 years ago. I just wanted to talk about this briefly because I do think it's a really interesting point for the MCU right now. Like, we're starting to get little hints of art about Doctor Doom that we saw at this like Disney Expo last weekend or whatever, and obviously the MCU has taken a huge hit over the last 5 years. Since Endgame, it's not been doing as well. All of the movies have sort of suffered a little bit in some way from Disney's change of the creative process, or box office wise, half of them haven't made, what they would have made 10 years ago, I guess. So it is interesting that talent are still, looking forward to that opportunity of joining the MCU, but it's not something that they're seeking out as much, versus, 10 years ago, you might have had a Paul Rudd reaching out and being like, hey, I want to be in something, and then he's Ant-Man or whoever, even Robert Redford, who just died yesterday, actually, he was in an MCU film, and that's crazy to say by itself. And oh man, I was really sad yesterday when Robert Redford passed away. He's 89 years old, a pillar of the film community. It's so weird that he's gone, because he's one of those names like, Jane Fonda, Harrison Ford, Viola Davis, Robert Redford. Like these are names that people immediately think of when you think who are the film greats. He was one of those talents that did do an MCU movie despite being what he would have been like 82 or something like that, and he joined late. Same with Harrison Ford. He was a president, so a lot of the legends have joined the MCU in some capacity. But yeah, it's interesting to see the talent not so attracted to the opportunity anymore, I guess you could say, but it's still kind of a paycheck. Like there's still people that are excited by it. I mean, Louis Pullman just joined, and he's an interesting up-and-coming talent after Top Gun Maverick. Steven Yeun was going to be in it. Iowa Debris was going to be in the MCU. Like maybe it's not something that people are so much requesting anymore, but it's still a universe that is able to attract this top talent. And who knows what the post-Doomsday Secret Wars universe of Marvel is going to look like, if it's going to be completely shaken up and like there's only 4 remaining characters or something like that. And maybe X-Men is a great opportunity for some young up-and-coming actor that wants to be in one of these movies to take an opportunity, take a stab at it. But our final story today, before we jump into TIFF50 Ranked, James Cameron, he's gearing up for the media press tour for Avatar Fire and Ash, and I'm very excited for that movie. Honestly, the trailer, I've seen it probably twice in theaters, and both times my head was spinning. He confirmed that he's actually writing a new Terminator movie, but the issue is, he says, quote, "I've been unable to get started on that very far because I don't know what to say that won't be overtaken by real events. We are living in a science fiction age right now." I think this is also an interesting thing that can be applied to comedy satire, or just like satires in general. It's hard to make fun of the times we're living in because of how over the top and ridiculous or dystopian they are. Like I know I'm not going to talk about a certain thing that happened last week, but people have been talking about Eddington in the last week since a certain event happened, and it's true. Like there's these satires that are just so ridiculous, but they're so accurate to the times that it's like, is it really satirical anymore, or is it just a depiction of what we're living? Like if he does a Terminator movie where AI is replacing people's companions or whatever, or I don't know. I completely see his point. He is working on another movie right now. I think it's about Hiroshima, or maybe Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but I know he's talking about the atomic bomb in World War II, and that sounds interesting, but I know he's maybe just taking on the project out of, his disdain for Oppenheimer not showing the bomb being dropped, which I think that's like the best part of the movie, that it's like this huge powerful thing, and the suffering that is only hinted at and is realized too late, so you don't get to see it, but about it. And I don't know, his movie should be interesting, but the fact that he's having a difficult time writing Terminator right now doesn't surprise me because of how odd the world is at the moment. AI, ChatGPT, generative AI, all of this stuff just completely taking over, and like it seems like every month there's something new science fiction-y happening. I don't know, I'm sure he'll crack it, but I think that's where I'm gonna leave the news for today. Like I said, there's gonna be no timestamps in the TIFF ranked list, obviously, because it's a surprise what my top 10 list is, but it's gonna be non-spoilers. I'm just gonna tell you briefly what I thought of it, what I liked, what I didn't like, who directed it, what place it's in my list. Of course, we're gonna go from 10 to 1, but let's do it. Let's do TIFF50 Ranked. Alrighty, let's talk about TIFF50. Well, I'll give you my general impressions of the festival. I do want to say, I had so much fun. It was a freaking blast. You have to keep in mind, this is my first ever film festival. I'm from a pretty small town, and even Ottawa, there's not really a huge film festival type thing. I've never had a chance to go to one. It was a lot of fun for someone like me, coming from a smaller background and kind of, only starting the blogging game or film coverage space reviewing type thing 2 years ago. Not even. So I was pretty nervous going into it that I'm going to feel overwhelmed. I'm going to feel like I shouldn't be there. And I was very right. The first day I was there, because I missed the first 5 days. So it started on Thursday, and I didn't get to go till the Tuesday after because I was on set for those 5 days or whatever. But the first day that I went on the Monday, actually, I went on the Monday just to get my press pass, and I was immediately overwhelmed, and I felt like imposter syndrome, oh, why am I here? They'll just give a press pass to anyone. I don't really matter. I'm a small fish, all that stuff, and then I think once I calmed down a little bit and I realized, okay, you know what, it's a fun film festival, everyone is so nice, and all the volunteers were so helpful, and everyone was like, oh, is this your first time, blah blah blah. Anybody that you chatted to was just super kind and welcoming, and it really took the edge off within the first 10 minutes. I got my press pass, walked outside instantly. Actually, I ran into the director that I just did the commercial gig with, and they were super nice. We chatted for a bit. They were going to see a movie that night, and it was a blast. And then the amount of people that I saw over the week, actually within the first day alone, I actually wrote down a list, everyone I've seen at TIFF. So the first day I was there, I saw the director from work. I saw Cinema Joe, one of my favorite reviewers, like on all of media and film coverage. I saw him literally walk by me. I saw Mia Leavicino and the Letterboxd team, which was crazy. I actually told Mia I'm a huge fan of her writing, and she's great, and I love the Letterboxd team. The next day, I saw Jonathan Fuji, who's one of my favorite YouTubers. At my Q&As, I saw Richard Linklater and his cast and crew, Goran Stankovic and his cast and crew, Simon Rex, Vince Vaughn, and Nick Pizzolatto, Rose Byrne, Matt Johnson, Jay McCarroll, and Hikari. So I did get to attend some Q&As after our screenings. That's the thing about the second week is most of them weren't really premieres, so you're not guaranteed to get a Q&A. But if there was a Q&A, I'll talk about it when I talk about the films. But overall, the festival was really well organized. Having my tickets on my phone was super easy, but I will say that Ticketmaster is a nightmare, and they need to figure out a new system, because I know so many people were struggling to get tickets in the rush lines or whatever you call it online on the day of, because Ticketmaster, if you mess up one thing, takes you all the way back to the start. So obviously it's not perfect. There is a system that's not working, but I mean, for someone that paid $0 for the festival, had a press pass, I used all 10 of my tickets. It was super fun for me. I had a great time. I felt very privileged and lucky to be there, and I'm already looking forward to next year. My plan next year is to take my time off at work in the first week. That way I can actually just go to like all the huge ones and the premieres. So I didn't get to see Sentimental Value, Frankenstein, Knives Out, and I'm not that bothered because a couple of those I could have seen them, but they're going to be out in theaters in like 3 weeks or a month or on streaming. So I was like, I kind of want to see some smaller movies or stuff that might be limited theatrical releases, and I think I accomplished that. So what do you say? Should we get into the top 10? Let's do it. Let's start with number 10, which was Easy's Waltz. So Easy's Waltz is directed by Nick Pizzolatto, who did True Detective. He also wrote the film. The Letterboxd average rating for this film is not very good. The mode rating is 3 stars, with it sort of hovering the average ratings between 2 stars and 3 stars. It was mostly negative reviews, I would say. The film stars Vince Vaughn, Simon Rex, Al Pacino, Kate Mara. The story is about a down-on-his-luck comedian crooner who's navigating modern Las Vegas with old-school Vegas personalities. I really didn't love this movie. I mean, it is a very just sort of older crowd, or like a boomer type film where they're mad at the younger generation that things are moving on from them, and there was just a lot of things about it that I thought didn't really work. Like, you know, my Letterboxd review, I wrote that I've just gotten out of the Q&A following Easy's Waltz world premiere at TIFF50, and the tidy, standard, formulaic answers of our cast and directors really did represent the film well. Unfortunately, this is a film that has arrived a year too late. The Last Showgirl does everything Easy's Waltz does better, especially the performances, but there's no Pamela Anderson to wow you and distract you from an extremely dull script. This is a script that never truly amps it up, razzle-dazzles, and turns it on. It wants to be an old-school Vegas musical, it wants to be an Uncut Gems, it wants to be Casinos, it wants to be all of these different films, but it falls short on all fronts. It's a movie that I think is trying to channel a lot of things, and it really wants to pull on your heartstrings. It's trying to inspire you, and I think maybe the biggest issue I had with this film is because it's trying to be this old-school musical, it's not able to, because Vince Vaughn, this is maybe rude to say, but I don't really care because he's a bit of a prick. He's a bad singer. There was not one musical performance in this where I was like, oh, okay, wow, maybe he can actually sing. And it's so interesting in the audience when you're there because this was the world premiere. I think this was the first time this movie was ever shown in public. Yeah, it was actually. And I was a little nervous about that already, but people know that the actors were in the audience with us and the director, and people started cheering when he would finish a song in the film, and people would like woo woo and clap, even though it was one of the worst performances I've ever heard. But they're doing it just because Vince Vaughn was in the audience with us. Like, he stood up and waved to everybody and went around shaking hands, and it was just like there were a lot of jokes in it. There's literally an okay boomer joke, and then they dropped the R word right after, and a bunch of the audience started applauding and like dying laughing, and then the people that were beside me all just had like such a straight face, like, what the fuck was that? And I had sort of the same reaction. Like, there was just a lot of moments in the movie where I was like, what is this trying to be? Is it trying to be Uncut Gems? Is it trying to be The Last Showgirl, where, you know, we have this aging artist who feels the environment around them slowly fading away and they want to give one last hurrah? That was the impression I was under. But then it takes all of these random turns that I'm just like, what are we? Simon Rex, he seems like a very nice person possibly, but his performance is is just so bad, and he has some of the worst dialogue where it's just so clearly explaining to the camera, and it's like second screen entertainment, almost Netflix levels, where he's turning directly to us and saying exactly how he feels, exactly how his brother in the film feels, Vince Vaughn. And it was just so odd to be watching that at a film festival, to be watching something that I felt like was such a Netflix movie. And obviously there are streaming movies that go to festivals, of course, like Amazon MGM has a bunch, Netflix had Wake Up Dead Man and all that stuff, but it was just a really odd sensation to be like, wow, an international premiere, and it's such a dud. My first premiere ever, just such a dud. The song choices are terrible, the performances were terrible, the Q&A after was so boring. Like the night before it, I had Richard Linklater talking, as well as some cast and producers from his film, and they were so excited and energetic. And honestly, Nick Pizzolatto, the director, it seemed like he didn't give a shit, or he knew that the movie was bad. He was so unenthusiastic. He gave one-word answers, and I was on CBC Radio last week, and the reviewer after me said, oh, well, sometimes the Q&A people, because I said I didn't really enjoy their Q&A, and he's like, well, sometimes they're just returning the energy of the question. All of the questions were super excited, but they just couldn't give a shit to really give a good answer, and it was really disappointing. I was very disappointed not only with the film, but with the Q&A after. I gave it 2 stars, and it is in 10th place. Next up, in 9th, I have Normal, which is a 2025 action comedy directed by Ben Wheatley, who did Meg 2, the Jason Statham shark movies, I guess. It's written by Derek Kolstad, has a Letterboxd mode rating of 3 stars. The synopsis is, in the aftermath of a bank robbery, interim Sheriff Ulysses uncovers a criminal conspiracy at the heart of his small town community. The film stars Bob Odenkirk, Henry Winkler, Lena Headey, Ryan Allen, Billy McClellan, and Brendan Fletcher. And I have to be really careful with this one because there's a big twist with this town that I don't want to hint at anything else that it is possibly close to, but it really reminded me of this one other film from a filmmaker I love named Edgar Wright, and I won't say which of his films it reminded me of, but there's a big twist with the town, and I didn't love this film. It was very derivative the whole time I was watching it. It just felt like because after the big twist came, I was like, okay, well, I've kind of seen this before. But having said that, I do think the performances are pretty fun. Like there's some really good simple humor in here that I like. Bob Odenkirk, I mean, look, he's doing a lot of these like normal guy does action movies right now, and he seems to be enjoying himself, so I think there's no problem with that. And he's pretty good in this one as well. It's just the script that's letting him down because of the use of voiceover and narration. They're really just heavy-handed explaining to you, and some of the ADR where they've clearly inserted lines to add extra explanation it's shockingly bad. Like I was actually appalled. This was the final film I saw at the festival, and I was like, okay, I'm ready for this to be over. But then there's other performances. Henry Winkler, I mean, we need him in more stuff. I miss Henry Winkler on my screen with Barry. He was like one of my favorite characters. Gene Cousineau, he's hilarious as that drama teacher, and I think he is fantastic in Barry. Not enough of him. I think that was a major issue I had with the movie, is like Henry Winkler is barely in this, and I feel like we could have used 20% more of him, and his dynamic with Bob Odenkirk is one of the saving graces of this film. And Ben Wheatley, like, he does action, and this is a very action heavy film, as funny as it was, and the action at first was really like impressive, and I was like, oh wow, this is like silly goofy action, but it just kind of goes way too far eventually, and to the point where it just becomes kind of numb, where I'm like, okay, anything they do now I'm not really blown away by, or no pun intended, I guess, maybe, sort of, probably someone gets blown up. Yeah, someone gets blown up in it at one point, but like it's so violent and like CGI Hollywood violent with like dummies and stuff flying everywhere that eventually I was like, okay, I've seen enough action. Let's try and focus on the story a little bit more in a not dumbed down, streaming explanation, just like Easy's Waltz again, where people are turning to the camera and telling me exactly how they feel, or they're, calling their ex-wife on the phone and leaving voicemail so we can have narration. It's just very sloppy. It's very lazy. There was no Q&A after because this was literally the last day of the festival, and all of the third showings usually are optional for the talent. Like, they don't have to come. So obviously nothing against them for, not staying till the last day of the festival, but they did come earlier in the festival, and it's a shame I didn't get to see Bob Odenkirk in person, but still. In 10th place, I had Easy Waltz with 2 stars, and then just above that in 9th, I had Normal at 2.5 stars. All right, in 8th place, I have Goran Stankovic, a Serbian filmmaker's feature film film debut, Our Father, or Oče Naš as it's called in Serbian. It's directed by Goran Stankovic and written by him as well as a few other people. Its letterboxd average mode rating, I guess you could say, is 3 stars right now, and then 4 stars is kind of in second place. The synopsis is when Dejan, a drug addict, arrives at a remote monastery commune, he falls under Father Branco's harsh guidance. As Dejan becomes Branco's right-hand man, their bond is tested when the priest's violent methods spiral out of control. Now, this is based on a true story. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but the film stars Vucic Perovic as Dejan, Boris Izakovic as Otak Branko, Goran Makovic as Mionica, Tony Mihailovski as Dedic, and Nidad Harakovic as Ratko. And at the Q&A, we had Vucic Perovic, who had played Dejan there, and Goran Markovic, who played Mionica, as well as one of the producers and Goran Stankovic, which was really fun. I got to ask a question at the Q&A, which I appreciated. I asked him about the public relation to this project, and in those moments of doubt where there was just so much pushback against this project from the church and the government, but they still made it. I just asked him, like, what did he tell himself, or what kept him going in those really hard moments of doubt? And he said that, like, usually it would be some inspirational thing, but he didn't want to BS me. And he said that it is kind of ironically a little bit of toxic masculinity, that he grew up in this culture where, like, quitting makes you weak, makes you an outcast, makes you a loser. So he knew that if he quit this project, like, he would fall into that. So it was ironically a little bit of the subject matter of his story that was almost keeping him motivated. And it was really interesting to hear him talk about, you know, as a Serbian filmmaker and someone that is a little bit disconnected from the church and the government, not to put words in his mouth, but he says, you know, there are these very classic Orthodox rituals, of course, and days of religion, but that doesn't mean he's like so religious or anything like that. But him talking about a public story, this is about an abusive monastery, as the synopsis says, and this was a public story where people were trying to not have him tell the story. And even when he spoke to people that are involved in the story, they're saying, oh, it's not as bad as people thought, or we were treated fine and stuff like that. So honestly, this was a time where, and maybe the only time in the entire festival, where the Q&A was a lot more interesting than the film itself. I think there is a lot of really interesting stuff going on in the film, talking about these men that are there and the physical abuse that they go under. But my biggest problem with this film is that Goran Stankovic, I think he was so focused on the brutality of what happened to these men that he was so, you know, dead set on showing the physical abuse rather than the emotional tolls that it's sometimes taking, and people talking through these physical moments of abuse and not talking about the men actually speaking through their mental health issues and addiction. There was really only rare moments of that, and it's a very slim film. I think it was like, I don't know, 97 minutes. So it blew by. It was so short, and it felt like there was a lot taken off the beginning and the end, and we were only really being shown the incidents or the chapter where there was physical abuse, and there's not a lot of aftermath or before or after, and we don't need, you know, the story from start to finish. And it was very clear this is a filmmaker who wants to talk about this one thing, but it just felt like there was a lot of sort of missed opportunities within the film. And I was fascinated to see the contemporary relationship between the Serbian church and the state portrayed on screen, because, you know, for my master's, I wrote about Serbian war crimes, or Bosnian Serb war crimes within Bosnia during the war in Bosnia, and there's a lot of religious relationship there and ethnic violence or acts of masculinity and nationalism, and it was very interesting to see that within this context, you know, 30 years later, because this was a true story that happened in 2010 or 2015. So seeing those same notions of masculinity and sort of things being done as part of a group because you think it's necessary, I think what Stankovic is attempting here is a really noble thing, like trying to talk about something that people are downplaying. It was a very public case, but, you know, he's just very interested in the physical element of it, and it's a very, like, hard movie to watch in a lot of moments, but there's a certain slimness to this movie that just, I don't know, made me wonder, could he have really gone deeper? He only feels somewhat interested in the main character's involvement in the cycles of abuse and sort of the hierarchy of these organizations and the toll that it took on these men. It never digs deep enough. He's touching on a lot of things that I think could have been interesting. I think it's a very noble and a very strong effort for someone that is, I believe it was his first feature film, because he was making shorts and television before. So for someone to move into another type of medium, I think it's a really good effort, a really strong directorial debut. So in 8th place, I have Our Father at 3 stars. In 7th place, a movie that I was extremely excited for when I was selecting my tickets. I was like, this is one I really want to see. It is Hedda by Nia DaCosta. Of course, written and directed by Nia DaCosta. I believe it's based on the play Hedda Hedda, right? I think that's a play. The average rating on Letterboxd is 3.5, with the mode rating being 4 stars, just beating out by 3 reviews, 3.5 stars. The synopsis is Hedda Gabler finds herself torn between the lingering ache of a past love and the quiet suffocation of her present life. Over the course of one charged night, long repressed desires and hidden tensions erupt, pulling her and everyone around her into a spiral of manipulation, passion, and betrayal. The film stars Tessa Thompson, Nina Hoss, Imogen Poots, Nicholas Pinnock, Tom Bateman, Finbar Lynch, and Mirren Mack. Giant cast of really fun party people, and yeah, like I said, I was really excited for this before festival because I like Nia DaCosta. I think she's a really interesting filmmaker, and this film I was like, okay, it's gonna be fun seeing her do a period piece based on a play. I really like the cast. Like, I think Tom Bateman, who's married to Daisy Ridley, right, is a very interesting actor. Tessa Thompson, very good actress, but this was a letdown. I think, I was promised, like, the person before that introduced the film at the festival was like, oh, this is a sexy thriller that is, borderline on crazy, and I feel like we were sort of cheated. It never really got that crazy. It never really got that sexy or erotic. It was kind of very safe, and I think there's a lot of bouncing around and using the same sounds within the film over and over again, and I wasn't huge on it. I don't think it's bad by any means, and definitely Nia DaCosta can direct, because there were some really, really good shots in this film. Like, I was thinking, walking home from this film, it's so interesting how she blocks some scenes that she'll have one person talking and then the other person is just like standing behind a pillar for no reason. It's just so focused on the character of Hedda. And I don't know, there were a lot of moments like that where I was like, oh wow, she does, dance sequences so well. She does all of this stuff so well. I love the color composition of the film. The music is really good, but it just didn't really wow me. Again, 3 stars, and it is in 7th place. Then in 6th place, I have Richard Linklater's Nouvelle Vague, the first film I saw at the festival. The average rating on Letterboxd is 3.7, with the mode being 4 stars. This already came out at Venice, or Cannes, pardon me. It came at the Cannes Film Festival. The synopsis is, this is the story of Godard making Breathless, told in the style and spirit in which Godard made Breathless. The film stars Guillaume Marbeck as Jean-Luc Godard, Zoe Dutch as Jean Seberg, and Aubrey Dulin as Jean-Paul Belmondo. It's a giant cast, and obviously it's based on an older media, and it's, a sort of biography, kind of biopic type thing. I was very excited to see it though, because I'm trying to get into French New Wave, and Jean-Luc Godard is like one of the greats that you can really go into, and there's a lot of greats in this film, but I don't know. I mean, the Q&A was really great. The guy that played Godard, it was his first like feature film, and I think he's really good in the film, but it's perfectly fine. Nouvelle Vague, like, I think if you want to know about the production of Breathless, you'll find some enjoyment maybe, but even that's a stretch. Like, it looks really good in black and white, but it's one of the most like cut and dry films that I saw at the festival, where I was just like, yeah, okay, they made the movie in it, and they kind of just made the same points over and over again, that he did this guerrilla style filmmaking and he just filmed for 2 hours a day. It's sort of the same joke over and over again in the film. They're like, oh, Godard, that crazy guy, but it's never anything that approaches any kind of dramatic tension. It's just, a very point A to point B historical retelling of this one great guy that didn't blow me away in really any special way. I gave it 3 stars, and it was my 6th favorite film of the festival, but just ahead of it, I had in 5th place The Lost Bus. I did not think this would be better than Nouvelle Vague, but it was. The Lost Bus is by Paul Greengrass. It is written and directed by Paul Greengrass, as well as Brad Inglesby. The Letterboxd average rating for this is 3.4 stars, with the mode being 4 stars, just over 3.5. The synopsis is, a determined father risks everything to rescue a dedicated teacher and her students from a raging wildfire. This is based on a true story. The film stars Matthew McConaughey as Kevin McKay, America Ferrera as Mary Ludwig, Yul Vasquez as Ray Martinez, Ashley Atkinson as Ruby, and a bunch of other people that are on the sidelines. And this is one of those films that's like a historical sort of retelling action film type thing. It's actually an Apple film, which I didn't know until I got there. I was like, oh, this is Apple TV? Cool. I kind of walked away with it being like, you know what? That was pretty entertaining, and it was solidly thrilling. As dangerous as it was, it feels like it's really throwing you in the elements. It's about a wildfire in 2018 in Northern California, near Paradise, California. I mean, so far, I would recommend every film I've seen except Easy's Waltz, but The Lost Bus for sure I'm going to be recommending to people when it comes out on Apple, because it's like such a simple watch that your whole family can enjoy. It's kind of historical, it's kind of educational. It's Matthew McConaughey's first movie in like 6 years or something like that, and I don't know, I found it entertaining, and the story is very like kind of boring at parts because it's just doing the classic thing of like, how are we going to get out of this, blah blah blah, and making our main character a down on his luck hero and all that stuff. And I get it, it has to set up tensions, but it just felt very obvious and blatant, and it was a little bit annoying at times, but it's still some okay performances. I think the thing that I enjoyed most about it and why it's a little higher than the other films is when they're showing how the wildfire starts and the depiction of that, the CGI is unbelievable. And in fact, all the CGI in the film, all the effects, how they show them going through the wildfires and all the firefighting is honestly crazy. Amazing to watch. It's just the character stuff that's kind of a letdown. But if you're interested in these like hardcore historical hero story type things about natural disasters, definitely check out The Lost Bus. I gave it 3 stars because it did feel like a pretty safe and, you know, normal film about this kind of stuff. But still, the CGI, like I said, really sold me, and it is in 5th place. All right, we're getting into the top 4 now, starting with Rental Family in 4th place, a film by Hikari. It is written and directed by Hikari as well as Stephen Blahut. Hikari, this is her second film after 37 Seconds, but she also directed some episodes of Beef. The Letterboxd average is 3.6 with the mode rating being 4 stars. The synopsis is: an American actor in Tokyo struggles to find purpose until he lands an unusual gig working for a Japanese rental family agency playing stand-in roles for strangers. As he immerses himself in his clients' worlds, he begins to form genuine bonds that blur the lines between performance and reality. The film stars Brendan Fraser, Takahiro Hira, Mari Yamamoto, Shannon Mahina Gorman, Akira Amoto, and Paolo Andrea Di Pietro. And what can I say about Rental Family? It's a cute, little, sensitive, somewhat emotionally manipulative comedy that I actually found very endearing. And you know what? Shout out to Hikari, because this was the second last film of the festival that I saw. I saw this on Saturday night at 9:45 p.m. It was the 3rd screening of this film, but she stayed and did a Q&A for us after, which was crazy. There was no need to do that, but honestly, kudos to her, and she brought so much energy to it. She introduced the film before, and she was like losing it, being like, "What's up, Toronto?" And she was just so much fun. Honestly, it was like one of the highlights of my experience was just how excited she is. But honestly, Rental Family, I was very excited for this one, and it didn't really let me down. I think, you know, it may have emotionally frustrated me by the end of it, but the journey had me choked up a couple times and feeling so much. This is a very endearing film where Brendan Fraser just really opens his soul to you as the performance, and I love the sort of strange life that Hikari has depicted in this film of working for a rental family agency. It kind of blew me away. I mean, we see new beginnings, missed opportunities, chapters coming to an end, all while our main character sort of navigating the misses and losses of his own life, and there's just a lot wrapped up within this little film, and I loved it. There's some hilarious moments. I saw it in a packed theater. Well, I mean, all of my theaters were packed. I didn't have a single empty seat in any of my showings, and this one was a lot of fun to watch in a full theater, and I really enjoyed Hikari talking about the rental family industry and sort of how it is within, you know, Japan and within Asia as well, like other countries have. And I know Conan O'Brien, he did a rental family situation, which we'll talk about him today, but I really like this, and I wish it could have had a stronger landing towards the end, but when it comes out, I urge people to go see it. I gave it 3.5 stars, and it was my 4th favorite film of the festival. But in 3rd, I have Rose of Nevada, which is directed and written by Mark Jankin. It has a Letterboxd average of 3.4 with the mode rating being 3.5 stars. This one was a crazy one. The synopsis is: in a forgotten fishing village, a boat mysteriously appears in the old harbor. The Rose of Nevada, lost at sea with all hands 30 years ago, has returned. For the few who remember, it's a sign. The Rose of Nevada must go out to sea again. Maybe then the luck of the devastated village will turn. Nick takes a job aboard the boat in an attempt to provide for his young family. Alongside him, newly arrived Liam joins the crew, desperate to escape his past. And I won't read the rest of the synopsis because it is a spoiler for what this film is about, but let me just say, I didn't have like super high expectations for this film, but it absolutely threw me for a loop. I hadn't watched a single trailer, hadn't read anything really about it, and found myself so confused and like curious the first 30 minutes. Like I was like, what is this slow burn filmed on 16 millimeter. It looks like an old BBC TV show where it was just so creepy and lingering and slow. And I'm like, what is this movie about? What is the big twist with the ship? And then something happens in the movie and I was instantly in. I could watch 4 hours of this and I loved it. Like, Mark Jenkin, the director, really gave me the creeps for the full 2 hours. And he has such a strange focus on like the texture of objects, like rusty things or the paint peeling or, you know, swings moving or whatever, chains sort of dangling. And there's so much of that kind of imagery that's just trying to evoke a mood or an environment that I really enjoyed in the opening 30 minutes because it sets that tone. And I think it works so well before we get into the main thing that's happening. So I loved how this story is told. I loved everything about it. It was so interesting. I think the performances are honestly fantastic. Callum Turner and George McKay are both fantastic in this film. When it comes out, I implore you to go see it because it is such an interesting little tale. Big twist really does get me on board and it had me absolutely pumped. So go and watch Rose of Nevada when it hits theaters. I gave it 3.5 stars and it was my third favorite film of the festival. But in second place, we have a Canadian film called Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, directed by Matt Johnson, who of course did Blackberry, but it is also written by him and Jay McCarroll. The film stars Matt Johnson as Matt and Jay Carroll as Jay. The synopsis is, when their plan to book a show at the Rivoli goes horribly wrong, Matt and Jay accidentally travel back to the year 2008, blah, 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 blah. That's literally what it says in the synopsis. The Letterboxd average is 4.2 with the mode rating being 5 stars. This was a huge hit at the festival. I think it won, like, not the People's Choice or maybe the People's Choice for Midnight Madness, actually, but I saw this on Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. Matt Johnson and Jay McCarroll were there, and it was so cool. Hands down, my favorite Q&A. This movie was like lightning in a bottle, no pun intended. It was so much fun. They are getting a theatrical release in February, which I couldn't recommend it more because, my God, it was just, it's so funny. Matt Johnson is one of the most energetic and like ADHD in the most complimentary way directors. Like, nothing he says in the film or does as a director is like streamlined. Everything is just like bounce to bounce to bounce to bounce to bounce to bounce to bounce. Well, I don't know. I'm absolutely pissed that Blackberry was snubbed, and I know this is going to get snubbed next year, but it's one of the best comedies we have literally had in years. And it's not only that, it's a great Back to the Future parody. It's one of the best like Back to the Future parodies we've ever had. This movie, like, it's not a small achievement. It's constant laughter, really earned drama that does so well and has you emotionally invested by the end. And as a Canadian, as someone who only moved to Toronto last month, it was just hilarious seeing all of these places that I've walked by every day and being in the background of this film. But it's also just the culture of the film is extremely Canadian and how they shoot on the street and this guerrilla style that Godard himself would be proud of. It was really interesting in the Q&A how they talked about meeting certain people actually changes the story, and based on how their interactions go with people, they change the story. And you can really see that because sometimes they'll have such an authentic reaction to strangers that they meet, and it's so funny. Obviously, I don't want to give anything away, but it was a freaking blast at the festival. Highly suggest you watch Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. I gave it 4.5 stars. That is, yes, I gave it a 4.5 star. I haven't given anything 4.5 stars in 2025, but this will actually be a 2026 film because it doesn't come out till February. In first place, my favorite movie of TIFF50 is If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You by Mary Bronstein. It is written and directed by Mary Bronstein and 113 minutes long. The synopsis is, with her life crashing down around her, Linda attempts to navigate her child's mysterious illness, her absent husband, a missing person, and an increasingly hostile relationship with her therapist. The film stars Rose Byrne as Linda, Delaney Quinn as her child, Mary Bronstein as Dr. Spring, A$AP Rocky as James, Ivy Walk as Diana, as well as Conan O'Brien playing therapist. This was the movie I was most excited for out of my 10 because I was like, Conan O'Brien making his like actual acting debut. Rose Byrne, I'm a huge fan of her, and I had heard rave things about this from Sundance, so it was the one I was most excited for. I saw it on Friday night at the Royal Alexander, and it is my new favorite movie of the year of 2025. I have it first on my 2025 ranked because this is coming out in theaters soon. Rose Byrne has without a doubt given like a career best performance in this, and if you know me, you know I'm talking about Platonic, and I'm watching it recently. I love it. I'm just sort of in awe with this film of how Mary Bronstein's taxing, nauseating, and claustrophobic nightmare of the film pushes Rose Byrne so far. Like, this is the closest we've gotten to Uncut Gems since Uncut Gems. There was a scene in this movie that no doubt I thought I was going to actually leave the theater because I started to feel nauseous nauseous and overwhelmed with how panicked I was, and I was having a panic attack watching, and I had to sort of stop myself in my head and say, okay, calm down, it's okay, it's just a film. That is how intense this film can get, how much pressure there is. There's so much going on. Mary Bronstein is just such an exciting director, and as Rose Byrne mentioned in the Q&A after, Bronstein is just so skilled at overwhelming you with the camera spacing, sound, and emotion until you think you're about to scream, then just like letting out the littlest bit of tension with some hilarious comedy, whether it's from Conan, whether it's from Rose Byrne, or A$AP Rocky, who is hilarious in this film. And guys, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is the movie I've been waiting for all year. This isn't a movie that I really liked, but I didn't love. This is finally a movie that I absolutely adored beyond my expectations. Like Uncut Gems, I'm honestly not sure if I can watch it again. I was very uncomfortable in the theaters. I believe it comes out in October, like October 10th. It's getting a theatrical, and maybe November, but we'll see what it's being, or it's an A24 film. We'll see when it actually gets into theaters. But If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. 4.5 stars. My favorite movie of 2025 and my number one film from TIFF50. That has been my TIFF50 ranked list. The 10 films that I saw, overall pretty positive, I would say. Way more movies that I actually enjoyed than anything I really hated. Like I would say Easy's Waltz was the only one that I walked out of and like, I wish I kind of didn't see that, to be honest. There were other ones I could have seen tonight, but still, 10 movies that I'm at least happy I gave a chance. Most of them were very positive experiences, but that's been TIFF50 ranked. Let's jump into what else I watched. All right, what else I watched in the last 2 weeks, I guess? Well, I watched 6 movies, 4 TV shows, and I started a book. I've only just started it, but I'll talk about it on social medias at least. The book is Shadowland Moon Knight, which is a Daredevil Moon Knight story. It's a comic I'm reading for this Sunday's comic collection read-through, which is finally going to be back. I'm going to be back to reading a book every week. I'm going to save my thoughts for it. Go check it out on the social media, but let's hop into TV shows. Platonic Season 2. I finally watched the first 6 episodes over the last couple weeks, and holy shit, I was just talking about Rose Byrne. She's magnetic. Seth Rogen is so funny, who just racked up a bunch of awards at the Emmys. I really like the character directions they're taking in season 2 with Rose Byrne's character and Seth Rogen's character. Like they are focusing a lot on their careers, and they're focusing on their friendships, trying to encourage each other rather than being like really big messes last season. And Rose Byrne's husband Charlie in the show, how he's a mess after Jeopardy. It's just one of the most fun shows on TV that I've really been enjoying every week. And I watched like the first 4 episodes in a day, and then every Wednesday I'm watching the new episode. So if you're not watching Platonic, go watch Platonic. But next up, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, season 17, episode 6, 7, and 8. So I've finished the season. I can't believe it's over already. I think It's Always Sunny 17 was super strong. Even the finale, the Golden Bachelor one, was a lot of fun with Frank being on the Golden Bachelor, but he's like the most disgusting man alive, obviously, but he's having a blast with it. And it was a really nice goodbye to Charlie's mom in the show. Her actress passed away, and just really sad. But Peacemaker season 2, episode 2 to 4, so we have 3 episodes to talk about. Episode 2 I liked a lot. I think it was even better than the premiere. I like the introduction of Tim Meadows and what they're doing with this alternate dimension where Chris is going around and like, wait, what the hell's happening? And then episode 3 building on that. What's going on with this other universe? You know, what is happening there? But Peacemaker season 2 is honestly a huge hit with me. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and episode 4 was a little bit slower because it was, I don't know, kind of shifting back to the regular universe and dealing with that stuff rather than the other dimension. So a little bit of a balancing act between the two, and we were bound to have an episode that was like, okay, that wasn't as amazing as the others, but I still think it was like really good, and I'm excited for where they're going to go with the rest of the season. I was going to talk about Alien Earth episode 3, but I actually didn't watch it, so I will just move on to movies, starting with War of the Worlds, the 2025 Amazon movie with Ice Cube, and it is one of the worst movies I've ever watched. It's actually the lowest rated movie I've ever rated something on Letterboxd. I gave it 0.5 stars. They filmed it over like 15 days during COVID. It was filmed 5 years ago, yes, and they filmed it during COVID on a soundstage where everyone was just like separated over Zoom completely. One of the worst things, but one of the funniest things I have ever watched, how they keep using the same Ice Cube reaction over and over again. Like like, it's just him being like, what the hell, what, huh, just over and over, and it's just so bad. The dialogue, it's just like one of the worst written films I've ever seen in my life. Having said that, I would recommend everybody watch it because it is so terrible and it's so entertainingly bad. But yeah, I give it 0.5 stars. I really did not enjoy it, but I then watched a movie I did enjoy, Together, the 2025 film, which I talked about on social media a couple weeks ago. It stars Dave Franco, Alison Brie, and it really did surprise me. It was one of those horror movies that I had heard about like over and over again while I was on vacation, so I was like, okay, as soon as I'm back, gotta watch that one, and I'm so happy I did. I didn't get to see it in theaters, which was a bummer. I actually rented it on Apple and watched it in 4K at home, but still, it was such a good time. I know it had that like legal dispute or whatever where someone's like, oh, they ripped off my movie, but I think it was actually impossible that it got ripped off because they had been developing this idea for so long. But still, there's a lot I really enjoyed about the film. What I will say about the performances is Alison Brie is so good, and she does so much of the heavy lifting in this film. Like, I just felt like she was outperforming Dave Franco in nearly every scene. And there's this one bit in the trailer, actually, that I can talk about where she does this, like, weird breathing thing that it's like... I can't even mimic it, but it's so good and it's so creepy within the actual film. Whereas Dave Franco, I don't know, there was a couple of moments where I thought like, oh, he's about to like hit that big moment where it's really gonna work, and then he just kind of falls short every time, and I just don't think he's a great actor, to be honest. I just think it's just he's a little whiny and he's a little too comedic. I don't know if he can move into the drama space like Alison Brie can, who is also very funny. But what I will say is like Michael Shanks really directed the film well, and I like how it just takes its time developing the concepts and the themes of the Together thing. Obviously, if you've seen the poster or the trailers, you know what happens, but like it's really letting you sit with this couple that is having hard time sort of finding their new life together and developing the space between them, with a boyfriend that's like really holding on to his past life, not past lives, but really holding on to his past life. And it was so funny to watch this literally the night before my girlfriend and I moved into an apartment together after 10 years together. Kind of insane, but at the same time, I like what it says about sort of relationship suffocation and commitment, giving yourself into your partner and just sort of giving up your freedom and just becoming one person. And it's a really fun commentary about that concept and those issues that sort of everybody who is in a relationship in their life goes through. And I liked where it went and what it had to say about all that stuff. I wasn't in love with the lore dumping. They try to do like this one concept in it that I was like, okay, not really necessary. And I feel like we could have had a great movie just without this random stuff. Obviously, this is non-spoilers. I won't say what the big twist is, but still, it was super entertaining. 3.5 stars. I would totally check it out if I were you. Then I had a hankering to go back and watch something nostalgic. So I watched The Incredibles from 2004. They really cooked on that one. It's one of the best superhero films of all time, straight up. Like, honestly, it's better than 90% of Marvel movies. It is one of the very best superhero movies. It's one of the best Pixar movies. I know the animation style sort of, or the models are a little bit outdated now and how they look in some moments in the film, but it's sensational. I gave it 5 stars, literally a perfect movie for me. But okay, the movie I was going to talk about in last week's episode, but I didn't get to it, is Sorry Baby, a 2025 film from Eva Victor. They are making their directorial debut. I was very excited for this film all year, and I'm like struggling to remember a script that was just so realistic and honest like Sorry Baby was. Like, there's moments where people are having conversations and it never feels like it's trying to be elevated for the sake of a film. I'm like, this is how I would talk with my friends, or this is how normal people just talk in the real world. And Eva Victor, they can write some of the most honest dialogue, and I was just really kind of blown away with the realistic, simple, and often inappropriate dialogue of, you know, how people shouldn't talk in certain moments, but they do, but they're coping with humor, and like structure, tone, treatment of the subject matter were just all A+. I couldn't believe how Eva Victor just towed the line so well between comedy and drama, especially dark comedy. This is one of the strongest directorial debuts I've probably seen in a long time, and I can't wait to see what they do next. Like, I was truly blown away. I gave it 4 stars. You should really check it out. It has some brilliant performances, not just from Eva Victor, but there's Naomi Ackie, Louis Cansamilli, Kelly McCormack, Lucas Hedges. Like, there are some very fun moments here. John Carroll Lynch has one of my favorite scenes of the year in this film, and it was just, it really left me feeling really good after, and really sad in some moments, but it's one of the year's better films, I will say, for sure. And speaking of one of the films of this year, I watched Highest to Lowest last week, and I did not have a chance to watch High and Low before it, the Kurosawa film, but I did watch Highest to Lowest, Spike Lee film, Apple TV. I wish I saw it in theaters, but it was not released in theaters here, and I thought it was okay. I think I wasn't wowed, but I did think it was entertaining enough, as goofy as the first hour is. Like, I was very, very concerned the first hour with dialogue and how the story is being structured. I was like, ooh, is this going to be really bad? And then it sort of quickly recovers once the drama of the story starts and it gets past the melodrama. I was like, oh, now we're really Denzel in his element. It's talking about some really interesting sort of moments of fame or, you know, richness and wealth, and I like what it's talking about until the ending. It sort of gives up a couple of moments. I don't know. It wasn't strong all the way through. I don't want to give away what happens in the film, but like, having not seen the original High and Low, and despite being on my watch list for 3 years, I can't tell what feels shoehorned in and what feels sort of reinvented, but the story is like super entertaining, and definitely gonna watch High and Low soon. I think there are some very weak performances. Like, I think it's a weak Denzel performance, but I still think, you know, it's okay even for Denzel's standards. Like, he's still so entertaining. And A$AP Rocky, he's pretty good in this as well. I thought he was also very good in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, but the score was just really, really bad in some moments in the first half, but then everything in the second half, really with the drama and thriller elements, worked for me. I gave it 3.5 stars. I didn't think it was terrible, but I still enjoyed it, and I think Spike Lee is a really great director. And finally, just yesterday, I watched Freaky Friday, because I'm seeing Freakier Friday tonight. I haven't seen this movie in probably 15 years. Freaky Friday, it was a classic. You know, when I was growing up, my cousin would play it all the time because she was into High School Musical, Freaky Friday, all the early Lindsay Lohan stuff. And you know what? Watching it as a 25-year-old man, I was like, I can still like this. I think there's still some very fun stuff, and it shows like the struggle of being a teenager, but also balancing your life as a parent that's moving into a new phase of your own life. And it's a classic Disney movie where everyone is obsessed with being in a rock band or being in some kind of like talent thing. I don't even know how to explain it, but like, everyone is just so concerned with like, I'm not popular and all this stuff. It's a very atypical Disney movie, but it's great in some senses because you get that nostalgia of those times that I miss that we just don't have in movies anymore. You know, now it's all viral online, but no one wants to be in a rock band. I gave it 3.5 stars, but that is everything that I watched in the last 2 weeks. I have some big stuff that I'm going to be watching soon. I'm going to watch Freakier Friday tonight. This weekend, I'm going to try and watch a couple movies, whether it's Caught Stealing, or I might try and see The Long Walk eventually. There's a bunch of streaming movies that are really on my mind that I'm like, I got to catch up on that. I want to watch High and Low. I have been sent a couple screeners actually to review, so I'm going to watch a couple of those, as well as Breathless. I want to watch the Godard film that Nouvelle Vague is based on, and same with The Roses, Splitsville, Roofman is coming out soon. There's an animated film called Superman, Man of Tomorrow, so I have a lot to catch up on. Same with Honey Don't, Eeny Meeny, The Thursday Murder Club. I have quite a few movies on my list, but that has been what else I watched. And in fact, I think that's going to do it for episode 86, TIFF50 Ranked. This was a lot of fun. I tried not to spoil anything about the movies that I saw. I just wanted to give you my order and my top 10 of worst to best, in my opinion. But again, none of these are out yet, so I didn't want to ruin the movies for you before you go see them in theaters. But all of them I would recommend, except maybe my last place one. I would wait for streaming for that one. But otherwise, it's been a blast being back. As always, please rate and review us 5 stars wherever you get your great podcasts, like Watcher of all things, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Acast. We're, of course, an Acast-produced show. Rate us 5 stars, share us with a friend. You can comment right underneath the show on Spotify as well. If you're on the YouTube channel, hit like, subscribe, and comment down below. What are you looking forward to coming out this fall, whether it's TV or movies? There's some really great TV shows starting up right now. Make sure you're hitting subscribe. We are so close to 600 subscribers. Let's try to hit that by the new year, possibly even mid-October. That would be great. Hit the notification notification bell so you know when new videos and episodes drop. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us, watcherofallthings@gmail.com, and find me on social media. Instagram and Threads are at watcherofallthings. TikTok is at watcher.of.all.things. I post on social media every single day. You can find fun videos or reviews there. Also follow my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. Follow me on there. You can look at my TIFF ranked list as well as my 2025 ranked list, which has now changed because of TIFF. Follow me on there. Drop a comment under one of my reviews that you found me through the show, and I will follow you back. Let's build a little community. Next week, episode 87, we are covering one battle after another. I am seeing it in IMAX. I'm so excited. I almost waited to get 70mm IMAX tickets, but I want to make sure I see the film early so I can get my review done for the Monday following. Thank you guys so much for all the patience with the 2 weeks off. It was just kind of crazy starting my new job, going to TIFF. I just didn't have time to record or make an episode, but we're going to be back on a regular schedule. I'm only going to miss an episode if I'm really busy because I'm on set or something like that because of work, but otherwise we're going full steam ahead. New YouTube video at the end of the month. Thank you all for the love, the support, the kind messages I get all the time. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.